you just present yourself a little bit, like very fast, if possible? Tell us
Okay.
about you.
I'm Mark Anstice. I'm originally from the Highlands of Scotland, and I first came to Morocco in 2005 because I'd bought a piece of land here, and I've been slowly building it since.
So where did you get this idea of Morocco and Essaouira especially?
Well, I didn't really get an idea of how to say that. I mean, rather than me finding this place kind of found me in a way, because I bought the land without ever having set foot in Morocco, and didn't come to Morocco until 5 months later.
Right.
And it was just something that somebody told me about. It was available, it was the right price, and seemed like a good idea.
But you were looking for a place to be, or for a place
I was looking for an interesting project.
Right, but you had an idea in your mind for a project.
Not for any, well, not for any detail. I just wanted to buy a piece of land and do something interesting there, hopefully in an interesting place.
Right.
So the idea for the project here, that has evolved over many years. Initially it was, my first thoughts were a place for windsurfers to come to, and maybe a windsurfing school. But we're quite a long way. We're 800 meters from the beach. It's not ideal. And then it was a centre for, and still is, a centre for art, groups, artists, drama, musicians to come. So we can rent the place out. It's always been a business idea.
Mm-hmm.
And then more recently, the permaculture has come into it.
And why? Why the permaculture?
Because in the permaculture came into it because in the 8 years that I've been coming here, I've seen a big difference in the land and in the forest behind. It used to be, and I know from looking at the records, that the average rainfall here used to be about 400 millimeters a year, and 2 years in 10 used to be drought years. But now, in my 8 years, 6 years have been drought years. And the rainfall has been much, much, much less. And I see the people struggling here. I see very hard life. I know that some families have already left because they can't cope with it anymore. And I think this, and around the same time, I was introduced to permaculture, or discovered permaculture.
You were not looking for permaculture to save the place. It was just like the two situations made.
Yeah, the two situations sort of met, and I immediately I mean, I'd heard about permaculture a long time ago, but I didn't really know what it meant or what it entailed. And it was only when I did the first 2 days of a course and got much more detail on it that I realised. I suddenly thought, wow, this is what we need in Morocco. This is what my neighbours need in Morocco. But how to get this information? They're never going to get this information locally. They don't have the internet. They can't read or write.
But
how are they going to get it?
There is a problem with.
I knew that I didn't know what they were doing wrong, but I could see that I knew that goats were a problem. That they were just eating everything. Because there were drought years, because there wasn't enough of anything growing on the land. All the shepherds were taking their flocks into the forest for most of the year, and I have seen in the 8 years, I've seen a massive difference in that forest. They're destroying the forest.
So did you hear about the process of desertification of Morocco? Or
yes, I'd heard.
Yeah,
I'd heard of that.
There.
And I knew, of course, that one of the main reasons for this is that they had already felled the trees a long time ago. There were no trees, so there's lots of wind. But what I didn't know was the damage that ploughing was doing. Like everyone else, I thought ploughing was something we've been doing for 5,000 years, and it's a necessity. But permaculture teaches you that it's not a necessity, and in fact, it's a problem.
So the part of your plan would be to restore, to do your garden in the permaculture way, but also to promote the community and
exactly.
Plant trees.
Yeah, exactly. My plan is to slowly get all the farmers here involved. It is going to be very slow, but one of the ways I can do that is the best thing I can do is make a demonstration site where they can see permaculture working. To prove that it does work, and even if it's on a small scale, we can upscale it very easily. So the idea is that we turn this little patch of ground here into a demonstration site where each terrace or certain parts of the garden demonstrate certain things that they could do here on a larger scale, and I keep a very close record, a very detailed record of how much water everything takes, how much is spent on seed, what work was required, everything.
So each terrace will be devoted to one approach?
Not quite. I mean, I think the bottom 3 terraces, because they're furthest from the house, they'll be devoted to pasture cropping and intercropping.
Right.
So they'll be very much, animals will be very much involved, the local sheep and goats, because that's where I see the future for this area is. I think it's sheep and goats.
But that's already they're present. I mean,
it's already there, but there's not that many. There's only out of 39 families living here, there are 4 or 5 flocks of goats.
Right.
And that's all because nobody wants to look after goats anymore.
Because what the people are living off in this?
Sheep, goats, fish from the sea, seaweed collection, and that's it. Anything they grow, they never get a good crop. I mean, in a good year, and let's hope this year is a good year, they'll make enough to feed. They might make enough wheat, for instance, or to make their bread for the year.
Yeah, but to have enough also for the next year to plant?
Probably not. No.
So that we have to buy.
So they will have to buy that. In a good year, they can make some surplus.
Right.
So they might make enough, grow enough onions so that they can store onions for the rest of the year and have those.
And in these 8 years you've been here, have you seen one good year when they've been able to do this?
Yeah, we've seen 2 good years.
Right.
2 good years. One was almost too wet. It just rained all the time in the winter time. And a lot of. No, they were good years. Both years were good years.
So only 2.
Yeah, only 2. The rest have all been dry.
And coming to the people of the place, what do you expect from them? I mean, how do you want to work out?
I expect them to change.
How would you want to work out the community and to make the change in their mind and to change the landscape?
Personally, I think they can only really survive here. I think all the 39 families that are left, I think the only way they can survive and prosper here is if they come together in some way and start to farm this place as a single farm. I don't think that's ever going to happen because of the system of land ownership here in Morocco and the fact that each field is owned by about 12 people, most of whom do not live here, but all have an interest. And as soon as Si Mohammed, who does live here, makes a little bit of money from that field, everyone wants a slice.
Right.
So the family situation here is very complicated, and if I had my way, I'd get them all together. I'd get all the sheep and goats together. I'd get them to do everything as a sort of collectivized type. This is just working it as a farm. Rearrange all the walls, completely rearrange the place. To farm it on sustainable principles.
And are you not hopeful that it will work thanks to the workshop that you started to do, or is it going to be one tool for this, or is it?
No, the permaculture workshop or the design course that we did, we had a very disappointing attendance by the locals. So only 3 people were there full time. One of them is Hafed, our gardener.
Right.
But from that course, however, we do have one project which we're going to do down on the beach, near the beach. It's the worst soil. It's little more than sand. It's the perfect place for a demonstration site, really. A, because it's the worst soil. If we can make it work there, then we can make it work anywhere.
Yeah.
And also because down there on the beach is very public. It's public because it's the access along the beach. It's common grazing land during the summer.
So it's visible.
It's very visible. Yeah. So people are going to walk past that and they're going to see the difference. If it was up here in one of these fields, not everyone's going to see that. So it's perfect, but it's going to be very difficult to make it work down there because it's sand and it's right next to the Atlantic. So there's salt, very strong winds for most of the year, 300 days a year, strong winds. It's going to be a tough project.
And apart from these 3 people who went to the workshop, how the people are accepting you in this place? I mean, how are you integrated in the place?
We're integrated pretty well here. I mean, I think our social capital, you might say, is very good here, strong. Because we've never set ourselves apart from the people here.
Yeah.
We made a decision very early on at the start that we would only ever employ people from here. And it's only the people who've actually built the walls of this house who came from a village over the hill, and again not very far away. Otherwise everything has been built by myself and my near neighbours. And the rest of the people see me and Ashlyn working every day. They know we've built this ourselves. They respect that. And
so you won this trustful.
Yeah, I mean, it's taken 8 years to build a relationship, and as I keep saying, we could never have bought that relationship, and we couldn't have won it in any less time. It's social capital is something you just can't take. You have to earn it.
But they are still skeptical about the project, or.
They are. I mean, when I've had several meetings with them now, and they're always enthusiastic. Some more than others. There are still some who really don't understand it and think that I'm just some Westerner with fancy ideas, and some who think I'm just going to come in and with a load of money and solve all their problems.
Right.
There's one guy down there who just thinks I'm going to buy him a water pump. I never even mentioned water pumps. He doesn't understand. But there's quite a few people here, and they're some of the leaders of the community. They do kind of get it, and they are keen to have a go, but they didn't come to the school. Most of the people I really wanted to come along, they didn't even come for one day. 2 of them told me 2 days before the course, I'm going to be there, we'll be there. Never appeared, not even once. They're scared of change. They're scared of anything that involves anyone from the outside. They're not scared of me, but they can't read or write. Imagine not being able to read and write and dealing with the Department of Agriculture, who want you to sign on a form, and you don't know what you're signing. And you know that everyone in Morocco is either taking bakshish or trying some scam. It's very scary for them, and they're nervous about any change, especially. But if they can see something working, then they'll adopt it. They're not stupid. But the other thing is that because they're Muslims, they believe that they're pretty much powerless in the face of God. God willing, inshallah. So if God wills it, their life will be good here, and if God wills it, or if God wills otherwise, it will be terrible, and they'll have to move. And they have no control over that. that's one of the biggest problems I have to face here in getting them to change, because they simply don't believe it'll make any difference.
Coming to the architecture, because I would like to know more about how you build place. Like, because we talk about how to build the trustfulness and how to build the garden, but now the house. How did it work out? How did you thought about the house? And
the house, I tried to design the house myself, but I didn't like anything I came up with. And there was a sister of an ex-girlfriend was here once in Morocco visiting with her boyfriend, and they came and saw the land with me. It was just after I bought it, and she had some good ideas. So later, when I had failed to come up with a good design myself, I got in touch with her and said, "Look, what can you do?"
Were you inspired by the technical aspect of Morocco?
Not really. I never really imagined that I was going to be building this place myself.
Right.
I was earning quite good money at the time. I've always been practical, and I've always been good with my hands, and I enjoy building stuff. But I just didn't imagine I'd be doing so much myself. And but things like, yes, from the start. I mean, I said to the architect that I wanted a vaulted roof in there, and I was interested from the start in how we might do that. The domes came later. And also I wanted from the start to build it in an interesting way, or build it in an old-fashioned way, so that we use natural products, stone and earth and lime rather than cement.
Right. Which are local way of producing houses here? Or?
It is, but cement has come in, as in everywhere else. Cement has come in, so the locals build their houses exactly like this, which is earth and lime and stone. But then on the outside they render with cement,
right,
which defeats the object.
Yeah,
completely defeats the object, and they end up with these little freezing cold little houses in the winter, and they're horribly hot in the summer, and it doesn't really work. They've forgotten how to use lime properly.
There is no handcrafts left. I mean, people who know the things and how to do it here.
I mean, Morocco is still a place where where you buy your lime, you go into the forest, and there are people in the forest with kilns, with ovens, and you don't get that in Europe anymore. You go to, it's very destructive for the forest, because large amounts of forest get burnt each time, but there a man is breaking rock and putting it in the oven and stacking it up, and that's how you get the lime. So there is some fantastic workmanship and artisan sort of work in Morocco, but you have to pay for that. And the influx of foreigners buying houses or building houses here and paying good money means that the really good malems, as they're called, are very expensive.
Right. My questions are a bit upside down.
Yeah.
But I'm coming back to the foundation that you want to promote, to create, or to develop.
Yeah.
What is the future of this project, which is really new, and how do you want to develop it further?
My vision for the Fertile Roots Foundation is that in 10 years we have multiple projects all over Morocco, and maybe even other parts of North Africa, where we are bringing in permaculture and helping communities use it. And ideally, in the end, after 10 years, we have projects that are self-replicating.
So you will be moving from one place to another, or would you have?
Yeah. Well, I see the headquarters of the Fertile Roots Foundation being here. I don't ever want to build another house again, that's for sure. One is enough. So I think we'll stay here. This will be our flagship project. But yes, I'd like to be moving around consulting, but more than that, I'd like to be training up locals to become the teachers and the consultants, and just coordinating a big effort to regenerate landscapes.
So they will be the one carrying the project after, if everything goes...
Yes, yeah, very much so. There's one young man here, for instance, who I have very high hopes for. He's very keen, he's very interested, he was here for the course. He's just bummed off down south to work on a fishing boat for 5 months without telling anyone, which is disappointing, but he'll be back.
He's the third one.
He's
the third one.
Yeah. And I hope he's got ambition. He's got more ambition than the rest of them put together.
And he's willing to leave also.
Willing to leave
the place, or to...
Yeah, he'd be very happy to leave the place if he, if I can. If I could get him to become a teacher, train him really well, have him trained by other people, and so that he becomes a teacher and he can see it working here, then yeah, that would be fantastic.
So you would do again another workshop with Darren or with no Darren?
We will do more workshops here, but I won't be doing another permaculture design certificate course for a while, because all the workshops have got to be towards this project. So the next one will be probably in aquaponics, where it'll probably be a short course, maybe a week, and we'll get one of the world's top aquaponics experts down here, and we'll go through all the different systems of growing vegetables with hardly any water.
And this will be for your project, or would it be the same plan as the previous one, where you were having people who were working on their project, or what's going to work?
Well, I think largely it would be for the locals. But yes, and I mean, an aquaponics course would more be about people coming and learning stuff that they take back for their own project. Mm-hmm. And I think the locals here, well, we touched very briefly on aquaponics at the PDC, and those people who were here for that, I think there were 4 here that day, they were all like, wow, that's such a good idea, I'm going to do that. I think Seema Hamid's already started building one, a wicking bed, because you can grow a lot of vegetables with hardly any water, and the water doesn't evaporate. It's a very good system. So we'll do something like that, and then the course after that I want to do is an engineering course.
Right, for the water?
Which, well, because one of the things that happens here is we've got all these hills behind us. So the farmland is around 100 hectares, but we've got a 300 hectare catchment, a water catchment. And when it rains very, very heavily, which it's going to do in a day's time, hopefully, this wadi down here and another 4 wadis around the place will be like brown rivers, especially this one. This one will be a huge amount of water, millions of litres going down it in the space of 1 hour, carrying with it a year's worth, or in fact now 3 years worth of bird shit, mouse shit, pig shit, human shit, everything in the forest, goat shit, sheep shit, everything, and all the soil, all the dust that's been trapped for 3 years by the trees, everything will come down these wadis, cross the beach, and go into the Atlantic and disappear.
So you want to?
I want to catch that water. I want to catch all the stuff that it's carrying, hundreds and hundreds of tons of fantastic soil and goodies, and we want to keep it. We want to get it into the ground.
And how would you do this by tomorrow?
Well, the only way to do it really is to build what are called gabions, which are dams, but which are permeable. So they're really made of rocks, and the water, they're only designed to slow the water down. And when you slow water down, it drops its load, it drops its earth, and also it backs up. And then we would probably have swales or ditches on contour that would take the water from that back up and spread it around the land and get it underneath the caliche. The caliche is this hard layer of weathered limestone. It's only about 1 centimetre thick. Nothing can go through it, but when you do get through it, the water will percolate underneath that and soak in. And if you allow tree roots to get through that caliche, they can then go and find it. So if we can store all that water in the land here, keep it as high up as possible for as long as possible, get it to go into the ground all over the place, and plant lots and lots of trees. The trees will use that moisture to give us mulch, shade, wind protection, nitrogen, everything that we need to then restore the soils. But the problem with all that is that if we get the gabions wrong and the swales wrong, and we get a heavy flood, instead of getting soil from the forest, we can lose all those good fields there. Flooding, and we could, the best fields in the whole area could go out to sea. So it's something that's not to be done lightly. We have to, I would not even attempt to do that unless we had some very good engineers down here to really look at it, to look at the soil structure, what we need to do that safely. And the best way to do that, I think, and the cheapest way for us, is to have one of the world's best engineers come here and teach a course for engineers on wadi restoration.
So that wouldn't be for the people, that would be for...
It would ultimately be for the people, because out of that course we would get a plan. We would not only have the teacher giving his opinion as to what happens, but we'd also have all the students who are engineers also putting in their ideas. So we'd have an enormous think tank here for 10 days, everyone working on this area as the main blackboard, if you like, as the main sort of example project. And after that we'd have a plan. After that, and maybe we'd have a couple of volunteers who would, engineers who would volunteer to actually make it happen.
Yeah.
So that's a definite. We'll be doing that in the next 1 or 2 years, I hope.
That would be still 1 week workshop.
I imagine that would be a week or 10 days max, I should think. I don't know. But yeah.
Are you actually already starting to build like a memory for the place? I don't know how to say.
A record?
Like, yeah, kind of.
A record of what we've done, or... Yes, I am. I mean, certainly...
Future plan and...
Yes, yeah, I mean, it's... I've got to keep very accurate records from now on, because otherwise I simply forget what I've done. It's like, every terrace at the moment we're planting different mixes of seeds to see what works well here and what doesn't, and what works well with what seeds work well together. So
you can reproduce it somewhere else.
Yeah, and so we know and you have to do that, otherwise you don't know what mistakes you've made. You see something doesn't work, but you forget what you did in the first place and why that hasn't worked. And also I need to be able to, well, exactly as you say, replicate it, and also demonstrate that it has been done in a way. Everything we do here from now on has got to be done in a way that's replicable by the locals. The more money I spend on achieving something, the less replicable it is, because they don't have any money. So it's no good me coming in and with a JCB and digging a big trench and doing some water harvesting like that, because they can't afford to do that. It's no good me pumping water out and putting water all over the garden, because they can't do that. I've got to do it in a way that they can afford to do themselves. Otherwise, it's pointless.